Can you sing a little tune of that song?
Olvidarte de un amor que no se va a acabar, estar con todo el mundo, na 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 na.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 70 of the Iga and Carlos Tennis Show. This is our second episode with new host Carlos Navarro. And we have a pretty special episode today because we're going to talk about Alcaraz continuing his winning streak in Doha. His first title there, obviously the second year that he's played it. Some big storylines ahead, undefeated this season in 2026. And along the way, he beats a handful of players like Rinderknecht, Royer, tough battles against Khachanov and Rublev, and then the absolute demolition job against Arthur Fils, which, is certainly the most convincing final I've ever seen from start to finish from Alcaraz, and arguably one of his greatest ever performances in his short career so far. But with all that said, Carlos, any major takeaways right off the bat?
My main takeaway for today, Vansh, my friend, happy to be here with you once again, is that we've had a couple of episodes, 2 episodes, and Carlitos has had 2 titles. So can we be considered already Carlitos' lucky charm, or is it too early to call it that way yet? You gotta answer me this question. Eh?
I think the two things are not unrelated, Carlos. I think
that's a good one. It's crazy. It's crazy what Carlos been doing, especially considering, I remember like 3 years ago, 2 years and a half ago, we used to say that Carlitos was a slow starter in terms of when he started a different swing. He kind of needed time to heat up and to hit new gears, and now we got him winning titles, as you said, off the bat. First tournament, first. I don't know if we can call it a swing because Doha is located kind of in the middle of Australia and then the Sunshine Double, but still, these are the type of tournaments that Carlitos had trouble in terms of locking in, and being 100% focused in that tournament. It's not a Grand Slam, it's not a Masters 1000. Maybe the motivation is not as high. Still, he's found that base level and that locked in, full lockdown mode mentally, that makes him at times unplayable, but of course, a rock solid player when the matches get tough and when maybe he's not feeling at his best. Still, he keeps winning them, and that's what happened this week in Doha.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, there's a base level, a sense of security that you feel now watching Carlos, where you feel like all the moving elements in his game, from the electric athleticism to the, shock-absorbing way that he's been defending. I mean, honestly, that's what's really stood out to me about Australia and here is that it just feels like the decision-making is a lot more, it's still instinctual. He's still having a lot of fun, but it feels like it's very reined in and measured, to where it's just a lot more calculated. Dare I say it's a little bit more Sinner-esque in how
Absolutely.
It feels like he's still, obviously he can hit shots that no other human can even think of and dream of. And obviously the highlight reels are glowing. But, aside from just the highlight reels, it also just feels like the base level is so strong where it feels like if he has a slump in a match, maybe he goes down in an early break or something at the start of a set, you just feel like he's going to get it back and he's going to figure it out. And you see that reassurance when he gives to his team. Like, he looks at his team and he just goes like, I got this, and I think you just see that. And I think in Doha, what he relied solely on is the fact that he's honestly realized in his head that he's the greatest defender in the world, because he's sort of not hitting himself out of matches anymore, because you get the feeling that he just feels like guys are going to hit closer to the lines against him. They're going to redline, but can they actually keep it up? We saw a really, really great performance from Khachanov. Like, seriously, some of the best tennis I've ever seen him play. And he actually won that first set.
I agree.
Same thing with Royer. Like, I didn't know he had that kind of capability, but he was redlining on his ground strokes for the first 7 games of the second set. And it just looked like, it looked like eventually, like, can these guys keep it up? Because Carlos's base level is going to ask you to do that now. And, I think it didn't all come together for him in the final against Fils, but really those hard-fought wins along the way, I think that's what make it very special, is that these matches are fun. Like, these opponents are having fun trying to push themselves and challenge themselves to redline. because they know that's what they have to do. That's what they have to do to stay with the best defender in the world. And I just love that Alcaraz is leaning on that aspect of his game more.
There's a special element regarding and surrounding this title in Doha. We talked about the many peculiarities regarding and surrounding the Australian Open title, and I think this week we've seen the difference between a generational talent, a generational player such as Carlos, and amazing, like elite players like Khachanov. But what actually sets Carlitos apart from these kind of players? As you saw, as you have said, and as you witnessed, Khachanov was able to play on par with Carlos and go toe to toe with him for like what 1 hour and a half, almost 2 hours, which is unbelievable, and it's terrific, and he probably would have gotten the win against almost any other player apart from maybe Carlos, Jannik, and Novak. Okay, that for me is a fact. But you know that at some point there's gonna be a crack in Karen's system. There's gonna be a hole in his system. There's gonna be a leak, so to say, and that's where Carlitos is gonna be there, to take advantage of that leak, to take advantage of that dip in level, to take advantage of that hiccup, whatever. And it is what happened with Khachanov's match, which for me was the best match out of all the matches that Carlitos played in Doha, out of his run. That was the highlight for me because it was such a tight, close match in which Alcaraz showcased all the improvements he has had in the last one and a half years. And that's the thing for me. That at some point, and that's why I consider it very special what he's doing, and I agree with everything you've said, because you feel like there's the base level, which Sinner always had and which Sinner always could rely on. But Carlos, you thought that maybe if things are not going his way, the base level is not gonna be there. It's either a spur of brilliant play, a stroke of genius, a 15 scintillating minutes. It's either that or he loses. And now there's a base level, there's a really reliability in his game. And for me, there are two key aspects in which he has cemented this base level. One of them is the serving, which was not so great in Doha until that final against Fizz. Okay, perfect, no worries, because then you have the backhand. The backhand is so improved compared to where it was like 2 years ago. He's able to hit those sliding down the line backhands. These are key in order to go from defense to offense. And these are cracks that he used to have in his game, and now these are strengths. So the players, his opponents, they know they have to redline, and still they know that there are no weaknesses in Alcaraz's game as of now. So with all things considered, the serve maybe was not at his best. Still, he had the backhand and the rest of his baseline game to rely on until, those Khachanov, Royer hit the wall at, 1 hour and a half in the watch, 2 hours within the match. They're going to hit that wall. Their level is going to decrease, and then Carlos is going to be there for the taking. And that's something that, says a lot about his mentality and says a lot about the place, the Zen mode he has reached right now, as of now.
I'm glad you talked about the backhand down the line, because that has really been something that stood out for me this year. I mean, already in Australia when he played De Minaur, like the last two sets of that match, like some of the best backhands I've ever seen. Like just leaning into it, flattening it out, like changing directions, catching guys off guard. And it just looks like the stroke is more compact. The shock absorbing abilities of that wing are so much better. He can absorb pace on it way, way better. Like I remember in 2024, he's playing guys like Tomas Mahach in Shanghai, right?
Yes.
They have great backhands. Or even Novak indoors in 2023, or I don't think Alcaraz could withstand their pace and absorb as well as he is now and redirect off that wing and come up with his own winners. Like it used to be much more erratic, and the average baseline rally, he would either hit some really good winners or he would, just spray all over the place and didn't have the shot tolerance that he has now. So I think the technical improvements, maybe some credit should also go to Samuel Lopez and both him and Samuel really for changes like that, because I think it's been a huge emphasis. Just in general, I think of both wings, making it a lot more compact and making him a lot less rushable. I think even on the forehand, I think the running forehand is what's really stood out to me too. Like just the way he's had so many good running forehand passing shots already this year. Like, I don't think in any other, I mean, even the entirety of last year, I don't think he hit as many great running forehand passing shots, clean winners, as he had this time. And it's just like to be able to counterattack. I think that was one of the rule books on Carlos throughout his career when he was, even though he was having a ton of success, it was like, can you rush his forehand wing, which is the best forehand in the world when it's firing? But maybe
which is what it's actually what Djokovic did in the first set of the Australian Open final. And I remember 2023, if I'm not mistaken, Roland Garros, first set, second set, he was adamant all the time, just rushing in cross-court forehand exchanges, and he got a lot of success doing that. And Carlos, as you said, has found a way to revert and to, just like the Uno card, just revert that tactic.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something in the Wimbledon final that came up, I think, and even in the U.S. Open final, I realized Sinner does not have that much success anymore with the hitting the backhand down the line or winning those straight up rallies that he likes to play, which is like the fast tempo pace shots back and forth. It's Carlos can get trapped into a mode still where he does. It doesn't feel like he's trapped in that mode for long, when he does get into that slugfest mode. Like we saw it in the first, the Australian Open final against Djokovic, where Djokovic was just redlining and playing like, just absolutely one of his best sets of tennis ever. But you just know that Alcaraz is going to find the variety now, and he's going to be able to change it up and get the patterns he likes. And I just, there's just so many things to fall back on right now. Like you mentioned the serving, I think maybe the worst serving performance that he had throughout the whole week was against Rublev, where his serve was broken 4 times, and he goes up 3-love in the second set, and then all of a sudden he finds himself at love 30 at 3-all, and he serves for the match, and that could have been a huge moment of trouble, right? Like he lost his serve, 3 match points, and he just breaks right the very next game, and it's just that was some great tennis too. That's some of the best tennis I've seen Rublev play in a while, and he's obviously the defending champion, so he beat 2 Doha champs, 2024 champ and 2025 champ, in order to get to the final. And those were maybe the toughest matches he played. I mean, he faced set points against Rinderknecht as well. Yes. And then, Royer was up 5-2. The 5 games that he played against Royer, the volley that he hit to 2-5 to make it 3-5, like I have never seen. Like, I mean, that's one of those shots that, I mean, maybe it's not going to be like number 1 or something when the actual highlight reel comes out, but in terms of like difficulty of execution,
yes,
it was so hard to do what he did there. And he just, I mean, it's just the athletic range you need on that, the vision to even come in on that approach, and just, it's just unbelievable.
But Vansh, we have like highlight reels of Alcaraz in every single match, man. At this point, we better rush Tennis TV. Just make sure you have at least 2 people working in every single Carlos Alcaraz match, because you're gonna have to do plenty of highlights. Give them an extra pay, because they're gonna work so much more compared to the rest of the players.
No, that's what it feels like. Like almost every match, you can at least count on like 10 really good points, maybe 3 standout points, which like even, that's the great thing about Carlos, is just like even the matches that are really one-sided for him, that he's going to win easy. Like they're just going to be fun to watch.
He's still going to delight us with a delicacy, That's a good thing.
Right. And like, there's not a lot of players that can make a 50-minute match as entertaining as he did in the final. So
yeah, it was a complete demolition against Arthur Fils. And at some point I was reading the comments regarding our last spot and after the Australian Open, and the thing banished is that there's not many negative things to say about Carlos right now. Is that of course I know that he's not going to be invincible. He's going to lose plenty throughout his career, and we'll have time to talk about the lows as well. But it's just right now, and we've had this debate in our channel and it's kind of circulating right now around the Spanish media. It's like, where do we rank Carlos Alcaraz, this version? And let me go specifically to the Arthur Fils match, because we have talked about the Khachanov match, and we talk about the difficulties of getting through both Rinderknecht and Royer's match. Rublev match was kind of a weird one with patches of great tennis, but patches of plenty of errors as well from Alcaraz. And then we have the final. The final was astonishing. It was as complete of a display as it gets. It reminded me a lot, because it happened to be on the same court, to the Novak Djokovic beatdown of Rafa Nadal in Doha, actually 10 years ago, which is kind of a funny coincidence.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of that match. Rafa said after that match against Djokovic that he had witnessed the greatest level ever on court. He had the misfortune in that sense to face the greatest level he had seen on court. And now we have Alcaraz, who completely steamrolled Arthur Fils without breaking a sweat, which is unbelievable, no? The level that we've seen from Alcaraz in that final, where do we rank him in the 2022 year-old ranking? Do you know what I mean? Like,
okay, like is that the best of his career? So in terms of,
is that the best 22-year-old player,
okay.
more complete 22-year-old player we've ever seen on tennis? Because it's the complete package, man. It's everything: serving, return, running forehands, down the line backhands, creativity, touch at the net, finesse, power, everything, man. He was just playing like he knew that there was nothing he could do. He could try to hit through Carlos, the ball was always going to come back, and then when Carlos was trying to hit through him, the ball was not coming back. And also tactically, it was a perfect match. We broke it down as well. Out of the 11 second serves Arthur Fils hit, all those 11 returns from Alcaraz went straight to his backhand. Fils had no chance to hit a serve plus one forehand off his second serve at any point during the match. That is tactical. That is a great strategy from all his team, prior to the match. There's the creativity, there's his insane level, but there's also the tactics, the strategy, and he has bring that up gradually to his game, and now everything is like falling in all the pieces are clicking, so I don't know, man. I don't know if you've because Roger was that dominant, but Roger didn't hit that dominance level at 22 years old,
Yeah, I mean, this is the crazy thing is we don't even know if this is his prime. Like, I think it's possibly, you could say, the start of it, but just like at 22 years old, I don't think I've seen a complete performance like that from most of these other legends.
Because Rafa, maybe like peak level, Rafa on clay, 22 year old, perfect. I'll give it to him, because right off the bat as well, when he was a teenager, he was already that dominant on clay. But in terms of being complete as a player and an all-around player, like you could translate this Alcaraz level, put him in Roland Garros, put him in Wimbledon, and he's going to be able to play at that level as well. Whereas Rafa, when he was 22-year-old, I don't think he was able to replicate the level he had on clay, let's say on indoor, let's say on grass, let's say on hard, fast court, But Carlos, you feel like he is able to produce these kind of performances in every single court in the world, on every single surface. So that's what, I don't know, gives him the edge for me, Just trying to think, if there's any player that bears any resemblance to this level, a 22-year-old.
I mean, the thing is, we've seen like maybe Nadal 2008 Roland Garros final, right, against Federer, for example, 4 games lost, just like a perfect match from start to finish. But still, that was more kind of, unknown at that point. Like that was his 4th RG title. It was already, he was already established as a guy whose tournament was that, right? So it's like, it's a little bit different. And whereas Carlos, I do feel like across all surfaces at this age, we haven't seen a more complete player like that.
Exactly.
Like, that for me is pretty clear. Like you can debate, whether or not he's going to be the greatest one day, going to be in that joining that table, but I haven't seen at 22 years age a player like this complete across all different surfaces and conditions. Because like now you look at his overall title spread, right? It's like he's won 26 titles, 11 of them are on hard, 11 of them are on clay, like 4 of them are on grass. Like you look at the ATP 500 stat, right? This was his 9th 500. And okay, I realized that grass 250s were around until 2015, and then like Hala and Queens became 500. So can't really, like, you can take it with a grain of salt there, but it's like he's now won like 3 outdoor hardcourt 500s. He's won Rotterdam, so indoors as well, right? And then he's also won, like 3 on clay 500s, and then like 2
And
Queens
2
titles.
outdoor Grand Slams, hardcore Grand Slams.
Yeah,
Rafa
and
didn't have any at that point.
so it's just
Hardcourt.
the whole extreme, like all the different types of surfaces and conditions you could ask for a player to excel in, like he's now doing. Like, I mean, obviously, there's still that post US Open, like last couple of months, but he showed he's right there, the ATP finals. So there's literally like no court now, no like safe part of the calendar where you
Environment.
feel like someone else, has a distinct edge over him. Like even indoors, like he's probably the second best player. Like if he's healthy, like probably, right?
Yeah.
So it really does feel like we're at a time in Carlos's career where this season could be an all-time season for him. At least it's shaping up in that way, I think. I think I'm going to put it out here right now. I think he wins at least 3 of the 4 majors. I don't know, like, I think he has a good chance of winning 3 of the 4. I won't go past that because we haven't seen it since Labor, like 1969. And obviously the Grand Slam thing it's really, it just messes with your mind in a unique way. And I think you kind of have to mess up once in order to really get that feeling. But
feel me, if he messes it up at the US Open, of course, messes it up. It's quite an extreme expression, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He would have won the Carlitos Slam because you're saying, what if he wins 3 out of 4? If he wins Wimbledon and he wins Roland Garros, he's gonna complete history as well, because only Djokovic and Leva have done it in the Open era. It's still crazy. It's still nuts, to even think about it, to even see the viability of it. Because now I think it's doable. It's very difficult. It's tough, but yeah, you think about the window span. You think about the opportunity that Carlos has right now. Probably it's one of the best years to, go for it and try to win all of them in the same year. Because you see where his competition is at this point. Sinner is always going to be there. So for me, it doesn't matter if it's this year, next year, or the year after that one. He's always going to be there. He's going to be his main rival, his main competitor. And at least you have kind of eluded him in 1 out of the 4. So, okay, perfect. But then you have like all the young guns that should be aiming at both of them and they should be challenging them. All of them are, I think that the best is yet to come to all of them. For all of them, you see Musetti, you see Draper, Rune is injured. Musetti is always, up and down also physically. Draper is coming off of an injury as well. Fils is coming off of an injury as well. So Djokovic is still around the mix, but maybe Djokovic is something that is still there and he's going to try to go after you. And in 5 years, probably, although with Novak, you never know, maybe in 5 years, he's not there anymore, But I think if you look at it, the window that Carlos has this year, the opportunity he has this year, all things considered, is pretty great. You never know. Maybe in 3 years, it's going to be a Fonseca. There's going to be, I don't know, a Moise Kwame, a Thijs Bogart. Who knows, in 3, 4, 5 years. But as of now, he's clear of the rest of the field as of now. So it's not entirely impossible. You can throw it out of the equation. I think it's something that could happen. Of course, it's incredibly hard to do, and it's not like it's a lock. It's very, very difficult. But if you think about it, there's chances. Of course, there are chances.
Yeah, there are chances. I mean, because getting Australia also has to free him up in a way, right? Like you've completed the career slam.
Yeah.
And you're now going to majors that you've won twice each. So and you are going to be the favorite at Roland Garros. And the only thing for me now is just how does he manage the schedule from here?
So far, so great.
Till Roland Garros. I mean, so February, great choice to skip Rotterdam and play this. And try as hard as he did here because he basically he was prepared to empty the bucket in Doha. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, what's the motivation? He's just completed the career slam. For me, there's always motivation just because of how, consistent Sinner is. So for me, it was like, knowing that Sinner is not going to be, is only going to gain points, right, for the next 3 months. It's important for Alcaraz. I felt it was important for Alcaraz to win the title here, or at least, increase his edge at number 1 and
assert his
dominance while he can, because it's all going to be an upside for Jannik. Like even if he doesn't win these tournaments, right? So
Yeah.
so from that standpoint, I think, and then also just his competitive spirit, just knowing that he's never gonna, he has that Rafa-like quality for every point, and I knew he wasn't just gonna come here and just, it would have been understandable though. Like, let's say he comes here and like he's a little off, and maybe he loses to Achano, but just the fact that he really has that drive to, I don't know, maybe try to go as undefeated as he can to start the year. Like, we're nowhere near talking about him in the same breath right now as like a Djokovic 41-0. That just feels insane in 2011. But still, he's off to a similar start to what Sinner had 2 years ago, right? At the start of the 2024 season, where he won Australian Rotterdam. And obviously just knowing how comfortable he is in Indian Wells, and knowing that last year he had that, for him, a disappointing loss to Draper, I would say, in the semis. Like, he's now going to come in pretty fresh, feeling really good about his game and his chances. And it's just like a great spot to be in.
So far, the management has been great throughout this year. As you said, very sensible choice to pull out of Rotterdam. And I think in Doha, at the beginning, he struggled a bit both to find motivation and his like top physical level. And I think at some point, I remember one of the press conference, I don't know if it was after Royer, after Khachanov's match, that he said he started one of these matches, he started it low on energy levels, but he found his way to, and he even said it, he's just so happy on and off the court. There's so much joy in playing tennis for him right now that he was thinking, okay, just keep fighting, keep pushing, keep grinding, because at one point your legs are going to come back and you're going to be feeling even better. And you know that the tennis is there, and you know that you are eager to keep playing. And so when the level and when the physical top 100 level is there, you're going to be playing great once again. And that's what happened I don't remember if it was Karen or if it was Royer match. One of these, he said that after the press conference. So he found that motivation. He found that physical level. He emptied the bucket, as you said. But now you have 2 weeks of rest before Indian Wells, before your first match in Indian Wells. Perfect. You go deep in Indian Wells. Maybe you win the title or you reach the final. You have the chance. For me, if I was him, you'd have the chance to skip Miami. Maybe it's not a very popular choice to our US listeners, okay? But for me, I would skip Miami. If you win Indian Wells, you can skip Miami, no problems. You can say any fatigue or tear or whatever, you can easily skip Miami. Give yourself a couple of weeks to rest again, and then because the clay season is there, and the clay season it's gonna be the let's say what can separate your season from legendary to just amazing or great, because he has a great clay season. His season is going to be one of the best in history of tennis, in my opinion. And the clay season is loaded with tournaments, and we saw it last year. Whenever you had Draper or Ruud going deep in those 2-week Masters 1000, then in Rome they were toast, and they didn't have great Roland Garros, both Draper and Ruud. So you're going to have Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid, Rome, Roland Garros, which for me it's impossible to attempt playing and going deep in all the 5 events. At one point you're going to skip one of them. You either do Indian Wells, Miami, then skip Monte Carlo and go to Barcelona, or you do Indian Wells, skip Miami, go to Monte Carlo and Barcelona, take some rest, then head for Madrid, even though it's kind of a rush. But in my opinion, it's either Miami or Monte Carlo, because Barcelona, he always plays in Barcelona. All his family are there. All his friends are there. Very special tournament for him. Holds so many fond memories. So he's not going to skip that, barring any injury or whatever. But it's high on his priority list, so to say. So for me, sensible choice is to skip either Miami or Monte Carlo. Of course, if he loses early in Indian Wells, you have plenty of gas left in the tank to go for Miami. But let's put ourselves in the best hypothetical possible and think that he's going to go through and he's going to, go deep in Indian Wells. So that's my opinion. I don't know how you see it.
Yeah, so actually before that, the Barcelona thing about the family and just like he's not going to skip it, I agree. That's why I think he should skip either Miami or Monte Carlo. But coming into this year, I would have been like, just play the 3 clay masters. Don't play Barcelona.
I understand.
But now I see it, like from the Spanish point of view, from just every year that he's been on tour, he's played it, and I think it means a lot to him. So
exactly. exactly.
I agree. Skip either Miami or Monte Carlo. I'm totally with you there.
I mean,
Especially,
Monte Carlo is kind of sensible choice because it's not mandatory Masters 1000 tournament, so
yes.
you can easily skip it. But of course, especially since he won it last year, because before last year he never had that chance to kind of shine in Monte Carlo. It was kind of something that he had it in his mind, like, okay, I want to do well in Monte Carlo at least one point in my life. Now he has won that Masters 1000. There's no rush to come back if you are not feeling 100% physically, especially considering that you're gonna have a very, very demanding clay season after the one.
Yeah, and the gap, the time between Miami and Monte Carlo is not a lot at all. Like it's
it's 1 week, no? I think.
Yeah, just 1 week. So if you go deep in Miami, it's going to be very hard to. Yeah,
and you are also transitioning surfaces.
Yeah. That's what happened in 2020. Right? You lost to Korda in the opening round because it was too quick of a turnaround, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, so in terms of his schedule, I think we're on the same page there. Skip Miami or skip Monte Carlo. And what you said about getting tired, actually, that reminded me of what Hachinov said at the handshake. When it's just like, do you ever get tired? Because I think in the third set, he started to gas Hachinov, and Alcaraz could sense it, and that's when he really put his foot down. So just another example of how his game just makes you so tired, running after all those drop shots and just keeping up that physical intensity for Karen was difficult.
It's crazy to see such an explosive, all this high intensity kind of, running around forehands and just hitting down the line backhands on the stretch, and he never gets tired. Even though his game is explosive as hell, he never gets tired, and that's because he's a beast. Physically, he has the best. I think he has the best conditioning in the whole tour, and that's actually one of his main pillars. Something that explains his success, that he's able to maintain that level of explosiveness throughout the whole match without getting tired, because his game needs it. And it's kind of a given, because we have seen him do this plenty of times, but we should highlight it more. The fact that his physical condition is probably the best on tour right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that was one of the highlights of his first major that he won, the 3 5-setters in a row, and then winning it. And then obviously also the Barcelona title that he won, where he played that match against Diminor, and then he had to play Carreño Busta on the same day. Like it was, it's
that Houdini-esque escape against Alex Diminor, right? That saved match point with that forehand. I don't even know on the run, but I don't even know how he pulled that off. Yeah, so many matches from Alcaraz Bolt that we can reminisce and be amazed.
He's 22 years old. You can think of at least 22 matches where he's escaped. Escaped from Alcatraz. Yeah.
Oh, there's no escape from Alcatraz right now on tour, my friend.
yeah, absolutely. But so speaking of which, that's a good transition into Sinner. A guy who's had 2 seasons now where he's been above 90% win rate. So there's some point in time where even the great ones with that kind of a really high floor, they do stumble, right? And I think the last 2 tournaments, there are some questions for Jannik.
Yes.
The 5-set loss to Djokovic, and then also just here where he didn't look quite as sharp to me in the big moments. Like, Menchik played an outstanding match, and obviously he's one of those players that can take your time away and, hit, when his serve is firing on all cylinders. Obviously, we saw what he did in Miami. The guy is 9-8 against top 10 players. He really rises for these kind of matches. But I did think that once Sinner won the second set, I didn't think Menchik was going to win, because I thought all the momentum was on Sinner's side. And then he kind of threw in a very surprising, for his standard, a very poor first game.
Yeah, the first game of the third set was very unusual for his standards. Absolutely.
He kind of gave away 3 unforced errors in that game. And then Menchik was able to relax and really play so well on serve the rest of the way. And basically, then even at 5-3, Jannik, I think, started the game off a little bit slow, and then Menchik was able to pounce. And I think Jannik got no rhythm in that match. That was the thing, right? Like, Menchik is just one of those players that, almost everything short he was coming in on. And he was using the drop shot, and he was making Sinner trying to finish in more creative ways. And that's something that he talked about after the US Open loss to Carlos, was that, I have to become more unpredictable as a player. I have to, and obviously that means throwing in the forehand drop shot more. That obviously means, the serving better. But the thing is that Sinner has been serving really well lately. Like he's been making a high percentage of first serves. We saw him do some of those things indoors, but now I think with the Djokovic loss and this loss right here, there's a little bit of very temporary, like it's no time to panic or anything. Like maybe this is the only real stretch that he's had in 2.5 years, where he's had two losses that kind of make you go, there's some chinks right now, right? So I think that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like, yeah, like he has something to prove again. Like he has to sort of, go back and sort of be the chaser, which is an interesting role that he's in the first time.
Go back to the drawing board. No,
Yeah,
it's kind of. I mean, we all expected this season to be a complete Sincaras dominance. That now we see Sinner losing 2 matches to players that are not named Carlos Alcaraz, and we think it's crazy, and we think we're living crazy times. Which, I mean, in the end, is not that incredible. I think Panatta said it in Italy. Sinner's gonna win plenty of matches, many matches, and he's gonna lose some, and that's okay. That's life. That's tennis. But there's definitely some question marks around Sinner right now. As you said, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button yet, because I think this is just a small bump through the ride. I think he's gonna be healthy and he's gonna be back at full force, and especially during clay season. I think clay is high on Sinner's priority list for this year. I think he has his sights set on clay season this year. So I don't know if maybe he's trying to peak around the perfect time, around the perfect moment in the season, and try to get that career Grand Slam in Roland Garros as well. It's kind of unusual in terms of Sinner, because you always think that Sinner is going to play at that 8 out of 10 level in every single match. But of course, there are some moments, where his level might dip. And the Mensik match was a strange one, because I like to call Sinner the anesthetist. You know what I mean? An anesthetist. Is it that way? The guy that relaxes you before you go into surgery,
Oh, anesthesiast. Yes.
Anesthesiast.
Here, but yeah, it's like, the guy who is,
you go to a match against Sinner, and whenever you have a momentum change for you, Sinner just goes at it, bangs the door, and he says, "No more. You're gonna have the momentum. No more. Forget about it, kid. It's my time." And he's gonna kind of make the match go into a sleep mode, where he crashes and where he goes full cruise control mode. And in that match against Menchik, it was the complete opposite, because Sinner won the second set. We all thought he's gonna run with this match. He's gonna win the first set easily, comfortably. Then first game of the third set, he has a horrible game, awful game with 3 and 4 servers, and it's Mensik who sends the match to a very deep sleep. So it was kind of weird to see Sinner on the other side of the usual narrative of his matches. You know what I mean? Then once again, there were some errors, some mistakes from his backhand side, which I think it just goes to show that maybe his confidence is not at his best. The confidence levels are not at his best. His serve has taken a bit of a fall in the beginning of this year. I don't think he's as decisive as he was with the serve, for example, if you compare it with the ATP Finals performances. But as I said, I don't think there's reason to panic yet. I think he's going to be fine. I think this is just a temporary bump. I think this is just a small blip, in his shield, which is weird, because with Sinner, we are so used to watching him cruise, even if you feel like he's not doing nothing extraordinary, just with his base level. Now maybe he needs something extraordinary to get out of this little hole, but I think he will be fine. I don't think there's nothing to be worried about. I just think it's a matter of winning some matches again, maybe playing a top 5 opponent, and just getting one of these being touched performances with everything he touches turns it into goal, like the Rude match last year in Rome. And maybe when he has that kind of match, he's ready again to just trust his instincts, trust his base level, and maybe at some point, all this variety talk, of all these talks about becoming a more unpredictable player. He has so many things in his head that he wants to execute, and that when he resorts back to his base level, maybe he's not feeling that same confidence he had at one point in his, let's say, linear shots. That's something that whenever you go back to that base level and you gain some wins again, that's gonna come back. So I don't think that's something to be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I also like your point about the phase season, because I think he's really targeting peaking at Roland Garros, really targeting playing well in those tournaments that he didn't get to play last year. And I think honestly, Miami could be like a really good springboard for him, because that's where he's consistently played at like a really high level. And so I actually think maybe he might not find it at Indian Wells. Like, I think those conditions are a little bit tougher for him.
Yeah, he's not the favorite for that one. No, not really.
I see Carlos being ahead of him there, but I think Miami, it could get interesting. Like, that's where I kind of think if he has to find that one like root performance, or like that one really high, like where you just think like, oh, Sinner is back to the Sinner that we remember. I think it's going to happen there.
Yeah, Miami is a good place to show that level. Absolutely, those high octane matches. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just his track record and consistency there just makes me think that's where we might see the Sinner of old again. But I say Sinner of old like he's fallen off a cliff, but really he's not fallen off.
For Sinner, if this start of the season, if this beginning of the season is the trade-off to being dominant on the clay season, I think he gladly accepts it. He says, I'm more than fine with it, because I feel like my main targets are on clay season, especially because you want to be as versatile and as all-around player and all-surface player as Carlos is right now. So it's also this competition thing, it's very good for him in that regard as well.
Right. And I remember Alcaraz saying that these tournaments motivate him more when Jannik is in them, because
true. He
said that, I feel like I have to get to the final now, and I have to face.
I think Sinner just doesn't care. He goes, that's his job, and that's it.
Was
yeah. At least that the Sinner that we are aiming to recover, that's the Sinner we know. We like, I don't mind whoever is on the other side of the net. I just go crush him, go home, sleep, watch some tape, then redo it again. And hey, that's a good thing. That's what makes this rivalry so interesting and so fascinating. This contrasting personalities as well. I love that from Sinner. No disrespect.
Just honestly, seeing him be more human in a way is. It really makes it interesting, right? Because it's like now you're actually seeing that he's human. Like, he actually can lose his ball speed once in a while. He actually can, doubt. He actually has those doubts.
Remember, the situation he's in right now, it's not so distant to the one that Carlos found himself in last year. No. It's basically, the similarities are staggering. Both lost against Djokovic in Australian Open, both lost quarterfinals in Doha against a Czech player, young gun, and maybe Sinner also regains his best level during the clay season, which is what happened to Carlos, and which is why we shouldn't worry so much about Sinner. Because last year, when Carlos lost against Goffin, there were plenty of headlines, plenty of videos, myself included. I have to admit it. Sorry, and we were kind of worried about where Carlos was headed, in terms of preparation and his approach to tennis as well, and everything. Just, I don't have to remind you what happened afterwards. So with Sinner, we're going to make the same mistake once again if he maybe has a surprise or a shocking lose in Miami.
Yeah, and I like how they're both trying to incorporate elements of each other's game into their own, right? I mean, you have Alcaraz, who's just continuing to improve his focus and concentration and ability to not have depths. Then you have Sinner talking about implementing a few more of these things which take time, and maybe that creates doubts because you have more options and that you want to try to play, and
yeah.
So that's definitely part of it. But that's what rivalries are so good for. That's why this rivalry is no exception. But speaking of someone who is in a middle phase as well is Iga, and I say middle phase because I'm talking about the transition being trying to play more like her old version of herself. pre-Wiktorowski to blend that version with the Iga that we saw the last 3 or 4 years, right? The one who's just on the baseline smothering you and with those score lines. And now she finds herself in a spot where, if you take aside Wimbledon, which was an incredible performance for 2 weeks, and Cincinnati, where she served really, really well, it's been really hard for her to have that same aura now on the tour. And we're just lost in Doha was another example of someone still in that search mode, right? She loses 7-5 in the third against Maria Sakkari, who is a player that actually, ironically, she struggled early against in her career. She lost the first 3 times that she played against Maria. But then, you come into it now the last 3-4 years, and it's usually a match that she was winning very comfortably. And, this has been a pattern for her this year, is that she will still look like herself in these first sets. She will win the first set rather comfortably. She will get off to a really good start, and you think that'll just continue. But then she suddenly has this little dip at the start of the second, and she's not getting the points on the serve that I think she really needs at this stage in her career. Kind of like what we were talking about with Carlos last year,
Yes.
the emphasis of the serve. I just don't feel like Iga has been able to implement those improvements and changes that they're potentially working on, but it just hasn't resulted in, it being straightforward for her to implement. And then we're also just seeing her default to that mode where she's trying to out-hit the opponents, and the opponents feel comfortable kind of just trading and playing big tennis, and Iga not quite relying on her athleticism. It's almost like when she sees a winner go past her now, she wants to try to match that on her side of the net. And so what I'm seeing is that stubbornness and that continuation of that, what we saw in Australia and what we saw towards the end of last year. So it's a little bit concerning to see the same things over and over again. But at the same time, I also saw some positive things in the third set. I saw some more introduction of variety. She was trying to come forward. She was using the slice a little bit more. She had that good fight back attempt from 5-2 down to 5-all. She, was trying a few different things that I think honestly wouldn't have occurred for her to try 3 years ago, when she was just kind of.
Yeah.
I think there's two things. Like, the tour has definitely caught up, and the tour is definitely more deep than it used to be, let's say 2-3 years ago. But at the same time, she's definitely lost her aura a little bit, and now she's trying to search and find that in terms of the right way to play against most players. And because she's just having a lot more dips in her matches, I just feel like the base level is fluctuating a lot more, and that's one thing you could honestly just kind of rely on. She lost the first set against Kazakina. That's another player that,
she would steamroll, against.
Usually no struggle. She lost a set 6-1 to Kalinskaya. She's losing matches now from a set up, and so we are seeing some of those shackles right now, and that doubt, where you look at the top 6 players in the world. Her, Rybakina, Coco, Anisimova, Pegula, Sabalenka. There's no weak link there. They're all just pushing each other, and they're all just contenders every single week right now. That top 6, and potentially further with Andreeva and Boko. I just feel like right now her decision to not play Dubai could prove to be a really good one, because I think she needed, with the WTA schedule, I think it's just so brutal in February. I think for the guys, it's quite brutal after the US Open, but for the women, it seems to be more front-loaded this time of the year, where there's just 2 1,000s back-to-back, a lot of retirements.
That's shit crazy.
It's just absolutely nuts. So, it's...
Tennis loves to hit himself in the foot sometimes, to shot himself in the foot. It shot itself in the foot sometimes. Iga, I believe she's at a crossroads, at this point in her career. I think there's more ebbs and flows in her matches than what we're used to seeing from her. And as you said, and this is something that may happen to Sinner if things were to decline at some point of where he is right now. I think that's what's happening to Iga. She is trying to gain some things in his game to, becoming herself a more unpredictable player and use more of that variety. And when you are trying to think about different ways to become a more complete and more versatile player, at some point maybe your ground strokes, your reliable ground strokes suffer at some point, because you are kind of thinking yourself outside the box, and then what you're used to do again and again, time and time, you don't do it maybe as much. I don't think there's like the hiccup that she's facing right now. I don't think this is gonna be something that is gonna keep happening for like 2 years. But at this point, there are some flaws that she can work on, and that's why I think skipping Dubai is a good choice in order to work on that and go back to the drawing board, as we said also, and go back and work in that, because you feel like at some point she overhits a lot and overcommits to lots of her shots, and I think this is something completely uncharacteristic of the Iga Swiatek we know, the dominant Iga Swiatek. If there was something about her game, was the reliability and the way to just be rock solid from the baseline, and then she hits one with tons of spin forehand, and then she hits another, and then all of a sudden you are 2 meters off the baseline, and now that process of kind of constructing the point and developing the point the way she wants is kind of lost, because I don't know, man, she had that amazing Wimbledon when she was blowing everyone off the court, and maybe you think, okay, I can also play this way. I can go and hit incredible shots down the line and just finish the point in 4 or 5 strokes instead of in 7, 8 shots, which is a more characteristic Iga's way to approach things and approach points, And this is where she is standing right now. We are heading to the clay season soon after the Sunshine Double. Maybe that is also a very good place for Iga to kind of regain that old level of herself. I think that the tour, of course, has improved a lot, and there are more big hitters that are coming through. You had, as you said, Mboko. You have even Iva Jovic at some point will be there, even though she's not kind of a fits that mold of just a ball basher, so to say. But it's still Iga Swiatek. I think even if she doesn't believe it right now, I think with his style of play, she can win a lot against these up and coming players. She doesn't have to just try to implement all of these things at once in her game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I think she's at the crossroads in terms of figuring out, that balance that will probably lead to more great titles and big titles.
Yeah, because her entire game is built on margin, right? It's built on
Yeah,
executing 4 or 5 really, really heavy shots, finding the short one and just crushing it, essentially. And that's how she would dominate, because she could just do that over and over and over again. And there was a repeatability there that she could rely on.
There were patterns.
Yeah. And at Wimbledon she served great, and so that made it easier for her to play that kind of first strike tennis.
Yes.
And go into that automatic phase. But ideally, with her coach Wim Fissette, what they're trying to do is neutralize these bigger hitters, rely on your athleticism and defense, because she's such a great mover, and she just doesn't seem to be willing to trust that side of it enough, I think.
Exactly.
And so that's where I think the stubbornness is coming in, because that affects her ability to create points, to construct points, to build rallies in a way where she could then find the finishing shot when it's actually there. Because right now I feel like she's trying to pull triggers and change directions and
way too early. Yeah,
and just hit herself out of ththese rallies. So it's
and Vansh.
That's what it is. I think more than just having the variety, that used to be her weapon in its own way too. Like, variety is not just about slices and drop shots. It's about varying different heights and spins to then
trajectories
to attack. And I think that's where, you're right. Maybe it can come on the clay, but honestly, the first 2 tournaments of the clay swing for the women, like you have the indoors tournament in Stuttgart, and then you also have it's where honestly I think Sabalenka has been much more dominant than Swiatek has, even in her best. So it might be hard for her to find it in those first couple of clay tournaments. I mean, maybe when we get to Rome, Roland Garros, I think because of that Olympic loss in 2024, mentally, like I still associate Iga Swiatek with those really great clay performances, but I just think it's been a long time since the 2024 Garros. And because last year she continued that slump sort of, until RG, until she made the semis there, I think she'll have to prove it again, but I think she can rebuild it. Like, I think this building process.
there's something very interesting that you pointed out and I left out when I was speaking. As you said, if you are trying to win shorter points and hit through your opponents as she's been doing, compared to her most, controlled aggression style of play that led her to win a lot, and you don't have the serve to back it up, everything becomes just so much more difficult. You're trying to win points the easy way, but your serve is not allowing yourself to just be in the center of the court and then moving your opponent around. So it just adds up mentally. You're thinking, okay, I'm trying to play in a way because I feel like I have to play in this way as well to keep up with the bigger hitters, but there are certain elements in my game that are not allowing me to play the way I would like to play. What happens? You go back to plan A, but your plan A, you also don't trust your shots because you are not so used to play with that control aggression anymore. Then your game becomes more volatile, and I think that's kind of part of the process that's been going through Iga's mind in these matches.
Yeah, and you can see the stress on her face too. Like she's not having. She knows, her opponent knows that she knows that she's nervous. So in these moments, and that's where it gets tough to get out of that rut, because, like I said, all these players in the top 10, at one point she had a really flawless record against. And it's just the more losses you keep on taking, because she's still getting to quarterfinals. She's still so good. So she can still keep getting to these quarters and semis. I'm not worried about her falling off the top 5, 6, but I think internally she has to be okay with not being the best player in the world. Because I think when you've achieved as much as she has, which is the 6 majors and 18 big titles and the flawless record in finals, all the winning streaks, the dominance basically, I think you have to be okay with not having those results anymore. And I think she's coming to terms with that because she knows that in the long run it'll be better for her. So I think that's why I am calling it a phase, because it is something that has lasted, like, let's say a few more than just the start of this year. I think it's been ongoing for really the last
I agree with you.
Year plus. So, but it's still interesting because even despite that, she still won 2 new big titles last year, right? She still finished number 2 in the world. It didn't feel like, even though I feel like it feels like Sabalenka has improved much more than her, she actually is still so behind in a lot of the stats. And it still feels like she's the defining player of the 2020s. She's still the best player of this decade. She's still number 2 right now. And it's, even though it feels like, oh, Sabalenka has improved this and has gone through her service woes and she's done this, but she has a problem in finals. And so it's like, so it actually hasn't, statistically, I guess, been what it could be, which is basically Sabalenka catching up and potentially overtaking. That hasn't happened. So it's still kept Iga in a really good way, and better than you would think, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta factor as well the fact that Iga is 24 years old.
Yeah,
she has like, man, we're talking about problems of just generational players. And when Carlos has problems, we'll still think about the fact, man, these girls are so freaking young, that 99% of the WTA tour would die to be in Iga's shoes right now and having the problems that Iga is having right now. So sometimes it's good to add that bit of perspective, because as you said, Iga's resume up to this point, still she could bow out as an all-time great, and she will bow out as an all-time great. So all these problems, we have to talk about them, because also you're talking about generational players, so the level, the standard is always going to be up in the sky, but sometimes we gotta add a bit of context, to see things through and believe that she will come out of this I wouldn't call it a slump, but this transitional phase, as you very well pointed out in the title.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that the encouraging thing about Iga is that she's going through her phase right now, but so are all the other top players that I just mentioned. Even though they are even though it's a very, very strong top 10 compared to the ATP, and it's a very strong, let's say, group right now at the very top that are sharing these titles. The key thing is they're sharing these titles. There's not one. It doesn't
dominant.
Feel like to a WTA player, like Sabalenka is the most consistent, yes, but I don't go into every tournament thinking she's going to win, right? Like I do with a Sinner and Alcaraz. So it's a very different landscape. where they're all so good, but they're all volatile in their own ways. Coco has her issues with the serve and her forehand. Andreeva is getting used to being in the spotlight. It's been very tough for her. Like Pegula, as great as she is, has a ceiling, right? Like Rybakina can be kind of in and out, and she's just one. Her peaks are maybe arguably up there with the very best, but there's always ebbs and flows, and no one's really putting together a perfect season from start to finish so far. So I think that's where it's a different thing where we're just
Pace.
We're going to keep getting a rotation of winners, I think, throughout the course, and I just think inevitably with that, Iga will have her moments.
Yeah,
she'll win a title. Maybe it's a title she's already won. But that's the other thing, is that she just like Carlos is running out of things to achieve in the sport, right? because it's like, well, okay, she hasn't won Dubai, but like who really like cares that much about that? Okay, she hasn't won Dubai. She hasn't won Canada. Okay, she hasn't won one of the Asian 1000s like Wuhan, but she's only played once, and she has the WTA finals already. So it's like, and then you have all of her other great clay court records and Indian Wells, and it's like these guys and girls are already so complete at the top of the level. With talking about Carlos and Iga, they're already so complete, and they kind of achieved all of this, almost all of it at the same time, right? So that's this podcast really.
I don't think we're gonna be happy with Carlos' career and resume until he wins the Glasgow Challenger. I agree with you. And Iga still has to win the Austin WTA. So as you said, they better keep that level up and maybe go after those challenger titles like Wawrinka did at the twilight of both their careers.
I do actually think the level of overreaction to their losses is crazy. Like I just. Like every loss that they have, both Iga and Carlos, you can find dissertations on Twitter. People and essays, and hey, like to some extent, I've also done that a little bit with Iga, just because I think I find her situation kind of interesting. I find myself going over the word of it when I try to analyze her tennis as well, because he's in a very interesting phase, and so that's why it's like, it's just fascinating. But there's all kinds of opinions. You will see people say, "Oh, fire Wim Fissette," fire Daria,
fire everyone, man.
Start over. It's not that kind of crisis we're talking about. It's a phase, is what I like to remind people. So
yes,
like or he or she is washed. I mean, many people said Alcaraz was washed after Miami last year. Like, how did that turn out? What happened after that?
How many people said that Alcaraz was overrated, man? You can't even imagine the amount of times I've had to read that comment out loud in like the last 2 years. You can't even imagine, mate.
But Carlos, can you imagine like if Federer grew up in social media? Like he wins Hamburg in 2001, right?
Brother, imagine Bjorn Borg leaving tennis with social media times. Oh, he could have had it all. He's a complete bust. He derailed his career. He threw himself out of the picture. Come on, man. Yeah, just imagine that.
Our point is that these guys are victims of their own success. And, and it's like imagine if, imagine what people would have said about Federer. Like he beat Sampras in 2001. He wins Hamburg, and then he doesn't win a big title for the next 2 years. And like he still was a top player and all that. But just imagine like if he grew up with phones and the kind of Twitter world that we have now and social media and stuff, like, I mean,
take Djokovic.
Djokovic from 2008 to 2011.
Exactly. The Serbian fraud. Just think about Twitter in Djokovic 2010. Just think about it. When he was struggling with his serve and he hired Todd Martin. Oh, man, the Serbian fraud. He can't even buy himself a first serve. The Djoko smash. Well, he still has that now, so.
I don't know his remaining. Yeah.
He can't be perfect, Even Carlos had a couple of, I remember now, he had a couple of Djoko smashes through that Doha run. I remember, they can't all be perfect. They are human. That's why Sinner is losing matches. That's why Iga is losing matches. They are human at one point. But as you said, when you're a generational player, everyone seems to kind of overanalyze and just be shocked when there's no need to be shocked. Just take what's happening with Fonseca, for instance. You see a glimpse of a generational player, they will just rip him off if they are not winning at the pace that the people think they should be winning at this point. So, yeah, would have been crazy to see Twitter in Federer's times. Yes, I agree.
Yes, but you don't have to worry about us being not interesting because Carlos keeps to the ring. The YouTube channel is back. And this is episode 70, and this was a lot of fun, Carlos. Thanks you so much for joining me, and we'll do this again after Indian Wells.
It was my pleasure. Sorry if sometimes my English is a little bit rusty, I still have to take the dust off of my English, So sorry to everyone in advance, but enjoying them a lot. Always great talking to you, my friend. And here we will be after Indian Wells. We'll see what happens down on the California. Yeah, it's California, no? California mountains, no? Palm Springs.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the desert. We'll do this again in March, and we'll see if we get a third Indian Wells title for Carlos or whatever happens. We'll be there to recap it. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be sure to follow us at
like and comment. Vanish, don't forget it. Like and comment.
Like and comment. Keep up the comments. There were a lot of great comments on the
Yes.
YouTube channel last time.
Yes.
And check out our individual handles, which you can see on the screen at The Magician 5GS and VanshV2K. And this is episode 70, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.